I am Paul Primus from Boise, Idaho. Been river surfing since 2010. Got into it. Even just prior to that, I met Ryan at university over in Boise, and we were into doing really stupid things, and one of those things was jump into a river and see if you could surf on a rapid. As time went by, that actually became a real thing to us, and of course this was already happening over here, so we've been looking at you guys for inspiration, mainly the Eisbach well, because we were able to access media content for that. Ever since, I mean, we've been chasing wild waves, and then we ended up in the position to be operating and creating our own river waves to surf, which is literally the dream come true, almost as cool as this house and a skate park in the backyard. So this was, these waves here are in Idaho. This one is completely natural. This is on the river called the Locksaw. They called it pipeline. I'm not sure why, but that's what they called it. And then this is the bladder, it was called. This was, and I got these flows on here. But this was a huge fast wave and really put me into, okay, I need to know how to swim really well. I need to know what I'm doing out here. Kind of had to figure all these things out. So from there, over time, Ryan kind of told a little bit of the story. I had to delete a slide because of it on the fill and spill. That was the fun one. We ended up at the helm of some of the funnest controls you can play with on the planet, in my opinion. This is the Boise Whitewater Park. It is the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Family Foundation Boise Whitewater Park. Pretty easy to say quickly. The reason I wanted to put that up there is because I hear a lot about the fundraising and what you need to do in order to get these waves to work. Albertson's grocery store is just a huge grocery store chain in the States, and their foundation got turned on to the rivers. Well, actually they didn't. Let me take that back. They were into the whitewater thing. This was built for kayaking, the phase 1 portion of our whitewater park. So we were extremely lucky that we had a huge donation. I believe this phase 1 was about $4 million. Phase 2 was about 7 on that drop structure. There's 2 more drop structures behind. I believe the whole project was about 11 million. So phase 1, construction completed in 2012. So while we were chasing all these wild river rapids, they were building the tools for us to make our own, and we did not even know it at the time. And then phase 2 finished in 2019. And in the time from phase 1 to phase 2, everyone saw what happens with river surfing. As we all know, we had about a 9 surfers to 1 playboat or kayak ratio. So they put focus on the first drop structure being for surfing at phase 2. The reason I put Waterlord number 1 and Waterlord number 2 here is because this upper pool here needs to be at a very specific height, down to the 100th of a foot. 2,660.5 feet exactly is the measurement that pool needs to stay at in order to feed the Thurman Mill Canal, it's called. So the Thurman Mill Canal, which has its own board of directors, or it has its own board organization, they are the water lord here. We have to give them water. Whatever's left over, we get to do this with. So here it's the Farmers Union Canal. We have to keep that up for pool at 2,657 feet exactly in order to operate this wave. So Farmers Union is our second water lord. Once they have their water, we can do what we want with whatever is left over. As far as the flow coming down the stream for us to use, that would be an entity called Water District 63. They are feeding 100-year water rights through all these canals. These are just 2 canals of hundreds that are on the river. So we are as far down on the totem pole of priority as you could possibly be. So we don't really have much say in what water comes, but we are very lucky. We get quite a bit. Idaho has some of the greatest white water, and we just happen to be one of the lucky states that is doing really well with water. So yeah, that's Oh, I got a little video just to see the, see if it plays here. Got some music to it. This is about 800 CFS. I believe I have it converted on one of the next slides. But just to be able to see this wave in action, we're about to go over the Obermeyer flashboards. This is flowing over the Obermeyer flashboards I'm about to talk about. Underneath here, just under my feet there, is a wave shaper. And I want to talk about that too a little bit because it's a little bit different than like what you see like with Ryan's wave and bend. The hydraulic jump on it, which is the hydraulic jump is the term for the water on water formation of a wave. So it's the water kicking off itself. There is nothing tilting upward to assist it. We'll go into that a little bit.
So 2016, it's like jams and side spins. When you like go change your backpack or something, don't do it unless you're about to win.
Advice from our local bartender. So I thought this was a good picture of the Obermeyer gates we've all kind of been talking about here and there. These allow us to completely back up the river, or in this case, against the initial design of this portion, this is phase 1, we actually set them to very specific heights to tune the wave. So we will back the water up with certain gates, and then we will flow it over certain gates. You can see these are 20-foot gates, and these are 10-foot gates. My apologies, I don't have the conversions, but you can see, one's twice as wide as the other ones. And our wave flows over 3 10-foot gates, so 30 feet, roughly 10 meters wide. But these gates, they're all pneumatic, so it's just one big air compressor in the booth that we can control the exact amount of pressure that we want in it to give us the exact height we want. For example, a common thing that I'll do is put a bunch of them down just below the surface and get a nice little pour over to make the park look better. But you got to be careful because then you more pour over and you have a low head dam, which is dangerous. And the whole point of this was to remove that, make safe passage as well as water delivery for the canal. So a little bit more on that. This is all of those Obermeyers in the down position. So when you are talking to someone who has a canal, the ditch master or the board of the canal, they're our water lord. We have to make sure they have everything they need. They talk about, well, what about debris removal? We have a problem there. I say, oh, easy. Deflate, you just let it go downstream. So it's kind of easy to sell this to a lot of irrigators, but most of them aren't super keen on having a bunch of surfers around. But once they see what we've been able to do here, I think there's definitely a future in it. So, but this is basically the pressure gauges. If you want to manually operate, you can really fine tune these gates just by little inflates or little deflates, and you can change the pitch a little bit of the gates. Here is the digital look of, this is a data sheet that I took. This is our alpha wave, which I will go over shortly. This is at higher flows. And this is the phase 1 controls of those Obermeyer bladders. Each one on our alpha wave, I'm using, let's see, 6 out of 7 right here, just in this channel. And all of these pressures are very specific heights to tune the wave into something that you can paddle into. Like for example, we can try to bring that foam back a little bit if it's pulling you too hard. So we are shaping the access to the wave with the Obermeyer gates as well as the pitch of the wave. This is flowing over 3 of them. If we put one up a little bit, it will actually flatten it out a little, down a little. It all depends on the scenario. But all those are very specific pressures, spending a bunch of time fine-tuning the manual adjustments to get to. So the amount of things we can do here, I don't know if anyone really foresaw. I mean, I think the engineer of this phase 1 is Rick McLaughlin, and he knew that the more adjustability we had, the more we'd be able to find. However, we do not operate it in any way, shape, and form the way that it was designed to be operated. This far channel, Wave Shaper 3, was actually supposed to be our main wave. But we've found way more success with Wave Shaper 2, which I should switch slides because it might be the next one. Yes. This is the optimal flow right here. This is 3,000 CFS, or, let me get out of the way, 85 cubic meters. So we're able to make a wave in Wave Shaper 3, as well as have that paddle in, pop up alpha wave in Wave Shaper 2. And this is ideal what we go for. Let me explain Wave Shaper 3 and Wave Shaper 2 a little bit. Wave Shaper 2 is the one we use most. And what that is, I don't have a picture of it, but it's underwater. Picture that 30-foot, that 10-meter channel. The water's flowing this way. It flows over a 2-step wave shaper that will go flat or down to 9 degrees. And usually at lower flows, we'll always have it all the way down. The difference that's interesting with the pure hydraulic jump is that when you move it down, it actually makes the wave steeper. Down or flat, we never go up and kick it up with anything. So it's purely water on water. Some of the benefits of that is you never run into anything. You know nothing your fins can ever hit. It feels a little bit different too. It feels kind of like a girthier, thicker wave, if you will. But nonetheless, it's some really cool technology. This is Wave Shaper 3. It was named that because it has 3 steps going down. But this isn't a complete success yet. This is optimal right here, but this rarely happens where it can go wall to wall. There's hopefully an upgrade coming, though, in the works of us getting McLaughlin out to redesign just the plate, but use the existing pneumatic and hydraulic system that is in there. So let's see. Here is Wave Shaper 2. There's the famous Uncle Rico right there surfing back in what, like 2015 maybe? And again, this is us. This is the 10-meter wide channel of Wave Shaper 2. That's 3 Obermeyer gates right here that the water's flowing over. Each one is set to a specific height. Of the 3, usually the center one is higher and the other side ones are lower. And by putting that center one, obstructing the center of the 10-meter channel a little bit, will actually bring the center of the wave in. Otherwise, you'd have a flushy A-frame kind of wave that would kick you off the back. But by raising that center gate, it brings it in and gives us that uniform, what we used to call Munich style wave. We've always been huge fans of that. This trip is a dream come true, getting to surf that the other days. So awesome. Wave Shaper 3, this is an up-close view. This is at a lower flow, so it's not optimal, but it's still a pretty good wave. But what I'm not a big fan of is that it just doesn't have any shoulders. They kind of drop off, so you just kind of surf in the center of it. But nonetheless, that got us all going big time. I mean, it was still a really good wave, and that's also, I would say, that was when Ryan was at the helm and people started showing up to join us in this activity for sure. But then we were able to make even more and even better waves on Wave Shaper 2. Here's the alpha wave up close again. This is my favorite because I spent so much time chasing natural river rapids. The paddle-in process, popping up on a surfboard in a river, very difficult, very technical, as you all know. I mean, in the ocean, the wave builds up and drops the board under your foot for you to put it on it. In the river, it doesn't. So you gotta bring your leg all the way up, and it's a lot more technical, but it's paddle in here, get across, try to get the retention right, get forward on your board, pop up, and that is one of the most glorious waves. It feels really high up on the river. You can kind of see everyone around you. It's the most visible. I really like big water setups. This is our highest flow trying to put in alpha. I'm testing the low head dam. If I have an issue with it at all, if I feel like it's pulling me too hard, I won't operate the wave. That's when I'll put all the Obermeyers down at that point, and that's when we're done. I should have got this in meters, but we have a very, very big range of flows we can do with phase 1, all the way from 250 CFS, which is actually maybe the next slide. Oh, here's some footage of those two running. I just kind of threw a bunch of media together so we all had visuals and just figured we'd talk about it. So anyone, any questions at any time, please just join in the conversation. And
Is that Jeff Banks on the Shipper too?
No, that's Lauren. That is the head of our Idaho Surf Association. He's actually extremely resourceful and very good at what he does. He is getting us going on our phase 3 of the Whitewater Park, which will be about half-mile upstream. But nonetheless, he would be a good guest if we could get him to fly over maybe next time. Just a top view of that setup. And you can tell I'm really proud of this high flow setup.
So you're queuing on the bank and then you jump in.
Yep. So there, is that me? Yeah, I think that. We jumped in right here. Yeah, paddle in, pop up in the middle. But one of the funnest. It's one of those things I can't. You got to come surf it. It's awesome. It also, the line goes down drastically. Right, in the summer, you just stand along the flashboards. You can get in right off those cement things that you see kind of surfing over. But a lot of people don't want to put the time in to learn the pop-up and things like that. And this shows that range, right? So we have just shy of 8 meters, 8 cubic meters here. And then we had, I can't remember the number on alpha. Everything in my head is in feet. Sorry about that. But this was a fun day. I wrote surfs up on the flashboard. Went out and surfed it. What we did here is we narrowed it from a 10-meter wave to about a 6.8-meter wave, and that's where plywood comes in. I think plywood is the river wave shaper's best friend, right? From especially everything I see here. But it works. It's what you have to do. We just did it in Tulsa too. I mean, some of the best engineers out there. You got to do it. But we just kind of stuck with it because nobody gave us anything else. So we're still throwing plywood in every winter to narrow that channel, and that lets us take that small flow and have something to surf so that we're able to go year round. So it's a small wave, but it gets us by for sure. And then, so I could go on all day about phase 1, but then along comes phase 2 in 2019. And this wave is incredible. It's intense, extremely fast. We are all using very, very small surfboards. I mean, I don't even know the dimensions of the ones that we've been surfing, but you got to order not just a child surfboard or a Grom surfboard, but like a small Grom surfboard. That's just how fast the water moves. But this is an interesting one. So those rapid blocks that Ryan mentioned earlier, that's from S2O Design. That's Scott Shipley. He does the Olympic kayak courses. And so you may have actually seen these if you ever saw Olympic kayaking on TV or something. But this is them. You can just build them up and around and kind of choose your wall distance. That was a big part of this. Is we were left, with phase 2, we were left with basically 2 non-working kicker designs, and we are still left with a design that is not stable enough to leave in for the public. Because if there's a big flow change and this thing crashes in between the walls, it's an absolute, you're never getting out. So we've been running it in sessions, which is cool. At least we get to surf it. But we are still working on, well, they are, I should say. The construction company is still working on fixes to make it stable. We're going to get a tailwater gate added this winter, as well as some more gates on the side. So that's some more construction, which I'm always excited about. I don't necessarily fully see how it's going to work exactly, or if it's going to work exactly. I've also seen a lot of things really not work throughout this process, but I think we've all had hiccups through all of these processes. But this one, I'm just happy to get any more units of adjustability, right? If we have something that we can move, that just makes everything easier, or some more things to be discovered. The rapid blocks in the secondary, I know, so after the lecture on the secondary, we had that problem. Boards wouldn't come out, nothing would come out from the secondary that this wave made. And I actually had Ryan come out a bunch and help out, and we started messing with the wall and finding the right spot, and we found out getting the wall, and then we have, let's see, if it were here, coming downward, we kind of made like this trapezoidal downward shape right at the right spot. And what that did is it allowed the secondary to displace itself horizontally and vertically further than it would with the walls that were on the inside. And those are kind of a keeper secondary, and we were able to eliminate that. Here's a video of just a bunch of phase 2 sessions. I just figured I'd show you guys a bunch of media if that's all right. But and also, please, any questions that come around, anything, if you guys have any, so here's a drone shot flying over from phase 1 to phase 2. It's about maybe a quarter of a kilometer down. We've been insanely lucky too on the amount of people. It's the sessions have gotten really crowded now, but when we first were doing them, I mean, it's a dream come true how few people we had surfing there, and we were able to just have a blast. This is a low flow on phase 2, but this shows the water speed. And we've actually tuned that into the point where we can body surf back and forth now. Some of the younger kids can just do barrel rolls, keep body surfing, no boogie board, anything. That's how fast this water's moving. There we have a C1 kayak. There's the famous Uncle Rico right there. Jeff Banks, another example of how powerful the wave is. And we thought it would be a big contention with the playboat community, but some of the guys really want to get in. We help them get on the wall and they drop in. It's incredible. He's surfing a little 1x6 plank from the hardware store. That's how fast this wave moves. It's the most fun I've ever had. Ryan will tell you, he'll drive from Bend anytime it's in and make it priority. But you can see the rapid blocks. So they didn't have a kicker that worked yet. And I found that they have a wedge, an upward wedge, and then I put a block behind it with a step of about 6 inches. You can see it right here. The wedge is up to the step, and that kicks the wave so hard and fast. There's so much luck involved, right? I didn't draw this out. I didn't model anything. We just kind of threw it together and it worked. And then we just adjusted accordingly as we moved on. But you can see our outer walls there and how our secondary doesn't get too bad if we take out some of the back blocks there.
And can child surf the wave or not? Or can child surf the wave?
Yeah, they can. I mean, we have, I'd say the youngest kid that surfed on that wave is probably 12, 13. I mean, it all depends on their skill level, but yeah.
There's no issue with weight?
There is. I mean, you need, the more weight, the better on that wave, yeah.
Women couldn't surf.
They can. Yeah, I thought the same thing, but then I saw them do it, and it's incredible. I just thought I'd show a couple pictures of the construction of all this. So there's the outer big cement walls, the inner walls. There's a lot of things that I think a lot of us and pretty much everyone would do differently here. This is a thing too, right? So, as far as safety goes, I remember walking this and talking with all of the construction workers right after I saw it. This is the Obermeyer's right here for phase 2, all down, and this is what's behind it. And all these rocks are mortared in. And all of these are the best foot entrapments if you ever want to live on the bottom of a river that you could have. So I pointed all these out, didn't do much. It got to the point where while I was pointing it out, they were just like, it's a park. We don't say foot entrap, say like trip hazard. I'm like, if you're gonna trip into your death, I guess, okay. But we were able to, I don't know, we pointed it out. A lot of it has moved around, but nonetheless, we don't wear leashes here. We don't wear leashes at the phase 2 wave at all. I don't wear them anywhere. Phase 1, you don't really need them either, but everybody else does. My non-leash thing is not a popular opinion anywhere. But nonetheless, we definitely don't allow, which was really hard, because when the secondary is pretty bad behind that wave, it would hold boards in and people would get a little frustrated, but it always worked out. It's pretty surprising how well in tune we were able to get with where our board was and how quickly we can get to it as we're getting out. Here's a top view. And so this, and I could show you back on the logic thing if you're curious. This is our sluice channel. This is the Farmers Union Canal grate, right? So this is pulling water in. So we actually have less water here than phase 1 because they're pulling a bunch in from our head pool. This is the sluice that is supposed to keep the trash off the grate, but the modeling didn't go too well with some later adjustments after everything was built, and the water goes directly in. So I'm in there in a wetsuit pulling trash and debris, and I throw the trash away, but debris and stuff, and throwing it all down the sluice, which is nice. It's job security, but it can be hard if you let it go too long. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll get in it, I'll get in my wetsuit and get in there. I'm going to go surf first to stay warm. But our surf spot, and this is a bypass. Another thing that any of us, including myself, would do completely differently, especially seeing how it works. The hydraulic, when it's created, just blasts you directly into this wall. This side of the wall is colorful, like a kid took a bunch of Crayola crayons and colored it, because it's all kayak plastic. Everyone just rides that rail and makes a nice colorful plastic line along the concrete there. And then of course this is our high flow. Anything higher flows, we start to move these gates. These are all 20 feet wide. They're also a lot taller. They're probably about 5 feet. They're probably 6 or 7 feet tall. In that later construction, we're getting the tailwater gate back up there, and 2 of these will be cut in half, so we'll have 4 10-footers instead of 2 20-footers, which will allow way more adjustability and all sorts of stuff to be discovered. What happens when we have a lot of water and we can mess with those, because it already makes a pretty cool wave over there at higher flows, about 2,000 CFS. So. Oh, we're at Tulsa already, okay. I thought I would the last one that just opened up Labor Day, just show a quick picture of. This is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If the job wasn't cool enough already, I was able to meet up with the engineer of the phase 1 of the Boise Whitewater Park. That's Rick McLaughlin. Phase 2 was S2O, that was Scott Shipley. Check out their new creation in Tulsa. These walls were all plywood when I first got there. We were hammering them together, pulling them out, finding out where the walls should be, how it should go. The wave shaper was already in place. Again, that's a hydraulic down or flat. That's the most it goes, and it's always down to keep the wave steeper. So there's nothing forming this wave other than water on water. This one's impressive. Every square inch, so is the one here. But every square inch of it is surfable. This was only 20 feet wide, but man, it's a big slab, and you can tune it. You can make it steeper, or you can just have it a huge slab and you can surf all the way to the top of it. You can choose to either get flushed off the back or just drop right back in, which is kind of uncommon in my experience. A lot of waves, as soon as you get to the top third portion of it, it just wants to throw you off the back of it. But this one, the retention's the English word we use. The retention is phenomenal at all flows, and we've been able to have, this will suit kayaks, boogie boards, anything you can think of. So this is the latest success over in the States, but and it's also got Obermeyer gates upstream. Those are all Obermeyers running across. Forms a huge lake where they actually have like boats and wake surfers and stuff. I was trying to find some of the wake surfers to come learn how to surf this thing, and there was no surfers within 1,000 miles of me. They're trying to open this thing, and people need to see that it can be surfed. So I was the best worst thing ever is just being forced to surf all day long so that people can see that it works, and that somehow I landed that as a job for the weekend. But yeah, nonetheless, that's about it. The most exciting thing really to me is just the Obermeyer system. The amount of adjustability, I will always support adjustability, although I know it is more expensive. But just being able to move, so for example, at phase 2, this is the system there. You can set each one of those Obermeyer gates to the 100th of a foot, and an inclinometer is the measuring system they use, and you can lock them in at those exact heights for whatever you're trying to shape. This kind of shows each channel how much water. I really like the logic on this one. This is from Obermeyer. And then you have your flows, your water level sensors. You can go to each gate individually, set them on water height, or you can actually set them to water level, right? So my exact level that I have to keep it at for Farmers Union, I can plug it into one of the gates, and the gate will just oscillate and keep the water at that level. And it does a really good job of it too. The only quandary I've had is the level sensors never work, so it's not going well. But once we get those level sensors fixed, there's a lot of automation, if you will, that you can use. I'd say we're quite a ways away from wanting to do that while running a wave. If I leave the park without a wave in it, I'd leave some automation in there for it to just hold that level perfectly. The problem is if you were to set a gate to do that while you had the wave in, a little flow increase would drop that. Your headwater would go down faster than, or slower than your tailwater goes up, and it creates that never-ending hydraulic behind it. That's another confusing English double word quandary, is that a hydraulic jump is the water-on-water formation of the wave, but the wave shaper is controlled by hydraulic cylinders. Two completely different things. I always get stuck trying to explain it, especially because I'm talking about both things back and forth so quickly. But yeah, it's the funnest job on the planet. I'm the luckiest dude in the world, and then I get to come to Europe and be even luckier. You guys have been so welcoming, so amazing, and massive appreciation. I think I can speak for Ryan on that too. Any other questions?
Seems the market is not controlled by Obermeyer.
Well, they're the only ones making it, so I just, yeah, I mean, the cool thing is those things are bomber. I mean, they can take, so for example, I've seen this whole, I don't know why I took my mic off, this whole sheet freeze up. And I was concerned because it was going up like 100 meters back of frozen ice pushing on these gates. Made me nervous, so I just dropped them all. And I probably should have had some sort of different operation, dropped one slowly at a time or something. But I watched this whole river of ice smash into these gates and start breaking up as it was flowing through them. And they were all untouched, undamaged, and ice can be the most damaging thing to anything on the planet. So I was quite impressed with that. We're already over a decade in. They're all working great. No leaks except for a little one in Shaper 3, which is a unique system where it's tied to the hydraulic cylinders, and so that's kind of to be expected. But they just keep working. Extremely reliable. So
I was wondering why they're not filled with water.
I think they choose air just for the speed. Just an air compressor, just a quick little pump will completely, change the pressure in there and get it up there pretty quick. I mean,
Probably freezing is...
freezing would be a big issue. Mainly just everyone's so experienced with the pneumatics, with the air. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, because that would work too. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. Sweet.
So
Yeah.
is there no tailwater management involved in the Leinewelle?
Oh, okay, there is. So, put this back on. I can't figure it out now. This tailwater, like I said, is about, it's got to be, I'd say 1,000 feet, so, maybe 300 meters, something like that, goes to the phase 2 wave. If I had a better drone shot, I could show it. What I do at phase 2 at flows below 1,000 CFS directly correlates the tailwater here. So on the winter wave, for example, especially because it's lower flow, if at phase 2 I have a lower headwater than a specific setting for this wave gets flat. So I actually do more than half of the wave shaping on this wave with my phase 2 controls. To your point, how effective the tailwater is. And that's, again, that's probably 300 meters apart, but I raise those gates at phase 2, back up our tailwater, the wave gets steeper. Try to bring it right to the breaking point. So not only is there phenomenally a huge amount of adjustability in each of these phases with the gates, but you can adjust each one with each other. And that's wild. I mean, it's a never-ending, it's never-ending. Every little move you make over here that you think does something good, you got to readjust for what it does over there. It's like medications and side effects or something. So, yeah.
Can I have another one?
Yes?
What's your process on a daily basis when it comes to setting the wave up? Like, do you have certain amount of settings that would work throughout the different flows, or do you like manually adjust it based on what you see?
That's a great question. It's both, right? So every year, the bathymetry of the riverbed completely changes. So it's almost like operating a new park every year, because we'll get 6 to 8,000 CFS. We put all the Obermeyers down, and the river is so high and so fast it rearranges everything. So we do use data from the previous year, such as the data sheet that I had up. That was basically just a screenshot of everything, and I know how to make that wave again. But it won't be exactly the same year by year. So you do have to go by what's it doing differently, what do you have to adjust differently. And as convenient, we were talking about this earlier, as convenient as it is to say, I have to surf these things to make them good. I have to. Every adjustment that I make, yeah. Every adjustment that I make, I think of while my board's under me and I'm on the wave, right? If I have the 3 upstream flashboards and I move one with 1/10 of a pound of pressure, or just a couple centimeters can even change the wave completely. I'll go make that adjustment. I'll get back on the wave, see if it did well. So it's a constant trial and error, not even just yearly, but almost daily. Just the water never behaves exactly the same in a setup like this. I think in a more controlled, like canal style environment, it can be pretty consistent. But in this scenario, you can't tell the water what to do. You can't. It'll tell you to fuck off and do something different every time. But you can work with it. So that's kind of the mentality you gotta have. Just like this little thing could make this a little better, but it's just constant trial and error. So that's the funnest part of the job, of course, is surfing it, making an adjustment. The wave does get better, and then everyone in the line's like, "Oh, dude, yeah, bro, it's so much better." Obviously we get the stoke, but we get the other side of it too. Like, we should be doing something differently, which I would be the main guy telling me to do something differently. So I totally get that. But yeah, it's an interesting job, but it's insanely fun. Here's the best move when somebody's out there and they're the first thing we do as river surfers, we blame our board. The second thing we do, we blame the wave tech. Third thing, blame the flow. We rarely look inward, right? And someone will say, hey man, this shoulder sucks, I can't get on it. And then I'll go up into the control booth and I'll do a 540 and I'll walk out, and that same person will say, dude, thank you, it's so much better. Every time. Every time, I promise you. It's a real thing. So, not that I don't want to make an adjustment, I just know that, with the ebbs and flows of the river, the wave's constantly shifting and changing a little bit. He just got on it at a bad moment, and then the next time he gets on, it's like perfectly fine. So, but yeah, a lot of fun.